Check. Check 1 2. Test 1 2. YouTube level. Very good. Check 1 2.
Little house and a TV back there.
Check 1 2.
That's twice. That's three.
1. Why is that echoing? Hello, hello.
Go out here, away from here.
Yeah. Check 1 2. Hello. Oh, it is twice still. You know what? Turn off the microphone.
That's what I mean, I was wondering if you could wear this thing.
No, it's not. Input. Here. Check 1 2. Check 1 2. Check 1 2.
It's here like 100 times. Dude, it's hearing everything. It's it.
Check. 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 That'll be a mess.
If you're experiencing double or echo voice when watching YouTube, it's likely due to a few common, including multiple audio sources playing simultaneously or a problem with the microphone system.
Oh wait, hold on. You know what? I know what
Yeah, something open,
you- Yeah.
another tab.
Yeah.
That's what it said. Jesus.
Check 1, 2.
Check 1, 2. Okay.
You have more?
Check 1, 2.
Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2.
Now, yeah, I don't know, maybe it's doing something. Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2. I'm at the window. 3 times. Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2.
Okay, everybody, hello? Hello? Hello, guys. I'd like to call to order the special public meeting of the Tredyffrin Township Board of Supervisors with a pledge of allegiance. All rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to call to order the public hearing. This is a public hearing to consider and possibly enact ordinance H.R. 488 to exercise the power of eminent domain to acquire all or a portion of the real property located at 355 Chase.
Board Exhibit 5 are copies of resident emails expressing an opinion on the proposed ordinance that were provided and sent to the Township and the Board. Board Exhibit 6 is a proof of publication from the Daily Local News, also from March 19th, 2025, advertising for the special Board of Supervisors meeting this evening. And Board Exhibit 7 is the proof of publication from the Mainline Times Suburban, also from March 23rd of 2025, advertising the special Board of Supervisors meeting for this evening. Those are the board exhibits for tonight. I would remind both the board and the substantial amount of public that are here this evening, this is a public hearing. We do have a court reporter who is taking down everything that everyone is saying. Please try to speak into the microphone. Please try to speak slowly, particularly if you are reading. We may have to slow you down if you get going a little bit too fast, just so that the court reporter can take you down. Same thing for the board too, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McKenna. Do we offer the motion first, or do we want to hear from, do you want me to put the motion up first? Is that
That's fine. That's your usual course of action,
Yeah.
yes.
So this is a motion, do we have a motion to adopt ordinance H.R. 488, exercising the power of eminent domain to acquire all or a portion of the real property located at 355 Chase Road for a public park for recreation for use by the general public? Do I hear a motion? Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any comments from from the public first, I guess? Should we ask for a comment here?
We do. We have the Property Owners Council, Brian Nagel, is present.
Hey, Brian.
If you'd like to hear from him first.
Yeah, let's give you a chance to talk before we get going rolling here, if that's okay.
Yes, thank you.
Just make sure your microphone is on, Mr. Nagel, please. Red on.
How's that? All right, great. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Brian Nagel from McElroy Harvey, here on behalf of the owner of 355 Chase Road. It appears that the township has decided to condemn my client's property through the power of eminent domain. I'm coming in somewhat new to this, and I'm looking at the situation and I'm trying to make sense of it on behalf of my client. I'd like to review a plan this evening that my client would be willing to work through that seems to make a lot of sense, basically as a resolution with sound planning principles in mind. There are a lot of issues and risks that come along with condemnation proceedings and taking someone's property in that manner, and I'll highlight just a few of those to start before I talk about the plan. The township residents will bear the cost, and the township will bear the obligation to responsibly and sensibly redevelop or improve the property in a sustainable way. Of course, once that's done, there'll be ongoing costs and maintenance issues relative to the property. I know it's already been noted by at least one member of this board that a condemnation in that context, my client will be paid several $1 million. I'm here to tell you, based on my review so far, from my perspective, I think the township is grossly underestimating the value of this property, and it will be quite a bit more than you think in the end. And of course, it's a long process to get there. I'm sure you already know that. In my role as general counsel, we have already engaged Mark Needles at Fox Rothschild to work on the condemnation matter, the eminent domain proceedings in particular, together with myself. And we also have one of the most well-respected appraisers around. I know that there's a lot of history with the Chesterbrook development. So much that I'm really just trying to get up to speed on it. I've been involved in some things over the years. I've been doing this kind of work for about 25 years, so I have some familiarity, but there's a lot there. But it appears to me that Wilson Farm Park, which is basically right next door, didn't exist when Chesterbrook was initially designed and developed. Now that the park is right there next door, it seems that that would be the logical place for recreation, for pickleball, for uses such as that, especially when we all know, particularly when you're talking about pickleball courts right next to residences, that can create use conflicts, mostly because pickleball courts generate a lot of noise. We do know that homes fit well with other homes. My client is already seeking 40 market rate units at the property in its pending validity challenge. But as a compromise, my client would be willing to consider a plan that gives all parties involved a little bit of what they're looking for. On the screen you can see, and maybe, I don't know if you can scroll down just a little bit, but on the screen you can see the plan. This is a suggested compromise. This has been suggested to the township as far back as 2022 is my understanding. So this is not a new proposal. My client has suggested this resolution. It's been discussed as recently as October as a 55 and older community, which I understand is something that is needed in the township. This is the first time we're showing a plan, and as you can see, if you look at it, there's a pocket park identified in the upper right-hand side of the plan, which basically would devote a fifth or more of the property to a park. 28 homes to fit within the existing surrounding homes, which you can see on the outskirts of the colored portion, the rendered portion of this plan. Those could all be age restricted, 55 and over. Thus, you can turn what would be a cost center for the township into tax revenue for the township and for the school district, essentially with no school children, if you're looking at the 55 and over. This would not create the burden of the usage of the private roads and the sewers in Parcel 1 that would have to be covered by the existing HOAs. This would be the 9th HOA within Chesterbrook, and my client would agree that the new HOA would pay its fair share for the roads and the sewer that are there in Parcel 1. This would eliminate risk for the township, which, as I alluded to already, I think is substantial. My client would, of course, pay for this development and all the associated improvement costs. It would essentially end the legal expenses for the township. It would avoid a 7-figure cost of a new racket and center or park or whatever the township ends up doing with the property. Obviously, it has to be redeveloped. It's a 30% reduction in the number of units that my client thinks it's entitled to under the validity challenge. It addresses the need for age-restricted housing in Tredyffrin, and it would provide, again, rather than cost, it would provide significant annual tax revenue for both the township and for the school district. Finally, it allows the pickleball courts that have been discussed as being needed to go in the underutilized park next door where they really fit in. So I would suggest that the township consider this proposal. We think it's a much better alternative to what you're considering tonight with your ordinance and a future potential taking. So I think it should be strongly considered by the township. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you have questions? Sure, go ahead.
Hi, how are you?
Fine, thanks. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. Let me ask you a couple questions. If I'm understanding everything you just said, you would like to, or your client would like to put 28 over 55 type housing on this particular land versus what he originally wanted to put on there. Am I correct?
I think the accurate way to say it is my client is pursuing what it thinks it's entitled to in the validity challenge, which is 40 units on this site. As a resolution to that, as a resolution to this proposed condemnation, my client is proposing to compromise that with this plan that we showed here tonight.
Okay, so instead of putting the 40 townhouses he wanted, he's willing to compromise with the township and put 28, and he is stating that they would be strictly 55, it would be a 55 and over community, nothing less. So by him building this, it's not going to put supposedly a burden on the school system, and what he's looking at is that both the township and the school system would receive a tax.
Correct.
on this. All right, so how much if he built, let's just say if he got to build this, what type of money is he asking for these 55 over community? What is he looking at? Is he asking $1 million for him? Is he asking, I mean, and I know you can't give it, this is a roundabout, but I'm just saying, for 28, what's he looking for? What is he looking for his return of the board giving a compromise and him working with the people in a picket post? What is he looking for? What is his, what does he want to take out of this?
Well, I think my client's goal is to beneficially redevelop the property in a sensible way, in a way that is beneficial for the surrounding neighbors, is beneficial for the property, works for the township from the township's perspective. In terms of dollars and cents, I don't know the answer to those questions right now. That's something we could get into further detail about. But I mean, I think when you say $1 million for a home at this location, that's probably a no-brainer.
So if he built 28 houses, he's looking for $28 million. I'm not holding you to it. Believe me, I can't hold you to it because you're just representing him. But I'm just saying, if we have 40 houses for $1 million, then we get $40 million. So he comes down and I say, I'll give you 28, and okay, I'll take 28 million versus maybe putting 2 or 3 there and still working with the community. I'm just asking. I'm playing devil's advocate here.
I've shown you what my client would be willing to do to try to resolve this. I think it makes sense. I think it's consistent with sound planning principles, and I think it would offer a lot of benefits to the community in a lot of different ways, some of which I've highlighted this evening. When I look at it coming in new to this, it makes so much sense to me. It just seems like the logical solution for this site. I'm new into this. I'm still evaluating and I'm still wrapping my mind around all the nuances of it. But I've been doing this for a long time, and I have a pretty good sense of how these things work. This is less dense than the surrounding homes, what's shown here. So I think it's a very reasonable and sensible proposal.
Thank you.
Certainly, thank you.
Tough questions? Thanks, Brian.
My pleasure,
Yeah,
thank you.
I think I'm going to start, and then we'll get public comment from everyone else, if that's okay. So this site's been used for outdoor recreation for over 50 years. It's in the densest part of Chesterbrook and is zoned RC, Rural Conservation, as part of the Chesterbrook Unified Development District. This very dense development in this area, all of Chesterbrook really, was only permitted because it's a combination of dense development, recreation areas, open space, and walking trails. And I believe one of the reasons the zoning hearing board rejected the developer's request to have the site rezoned, I mean, that's one of the reasons, is because it's a combination of dense zoning with open space and recreation around it. Pickleball is one of the fastest growing sports in America, and pickleball courts are frequently requested by our residents. It's a common need we hear in emails from, we get emails from people. It's been 7 years since the developer began presenting options for this site. This isn't a new option, and he's not presented any viable options in compliance with the current zoning, which is important for Chesterbrook. Since I've been on the Board of Supervisors, we've had to search for a new location for a fire EMS station, and we saw the TE School District spend a lot of time and effort finding a new location for an elementary school. There's simply not many new sites available in the township. So therefore, it makes a lot of sense to return the site to what it was always intended to be and what it was for over 50 years, which is outdoor recreation usage. I want to address one thing you brought up first, and I'll go some other points. Isn't this park right next to Wilson Park? Well, yeah, it is. We all know where it is. But don't forget, it was next to Wilson Park before Wilson, for many, many years, and it was very well utilized right next to Wilson Park. And I'm going to tell you a little personal story. So I have a grandchild in California, in Sunnyvale, and a grandchild in London. I had the opportunity to visit both of them over the past week and a half or so. There's a lot of travel. But I got to take them for walks in those areas. So I took a 2-year-old on a walk in Sunnyvale, and we went to 3 different parks in 40 minutes in a little stroller. Like, I'm not really going really fast, and those of you who may know, I had some knee surgery, so I'm not going fast at all. We visited 3 little parks in the community. One was a little super small pocket park. One was a little bit bigger park, which had a big swing set and a playground. And one was a very big community park, not as big as Wilson, but a big park, all within a little 40-minute loop. Flew to London, had business there, visited my 5-month-old, took him, and actually his other grandfather was there, so he and the 2 of us took him for a walk. I mean, again, he's 5 months old, like how far are we going? And within 20 minutes, we were in 2 different little parks. One was a little bitty pocket park with a bucket swing and a little swing set and a little playground thing, and the other was a little bit bigger park. And so a combination of big parks and little parks within proximity is sort of how a lot of places are developed, and it's what makes communities interesting and fun. Like, you could make the same argument, why do we have all the other parks in the township? We could cram everything into Wilson Park. And that's not the way communities develop, and that's not what makes places desirable to live in. So I think that's argument is one I personally reject. We're going to hear arguments, I'm sure, about financial responsibility. And so first, this is probably going to end up in litigation, as we've already said. And it's not responsible for us to disclose information that's going to help our opponent unless it's absolutely, until it's really necessary. So I expect some residents will not be happy with the level of disclosure tonight, and I apologize in advance. We're doing our best to explain, disclosing as much as we're comfortable disclosing. I realize everyone's concerned about spending. So first, if you look at the general, I'm going to go high level in terms of the general fund and how money is spent in the township, since a lot of you guys don't go to all these meetings. So the general fund, the average tax increase over the past 5 years, beginning in 2021, has been 2%. During that's well below inflation. At the same time, the general fund reserves have increased from 16.4 million when I was first elected to 18.2 million this year. And that 18.2 million includes, there's another 1.7 million above that, which is money that's reserved to pay for the firehouse we're building at 23 Bridge Avenue. And I realize that doesn't tell the whole story, but that is important to understand, that we are raising taxes in the general fund, less than inflation, and we are able to increase our reserves. I realize that, but the whole story goes, we also implemented a stormwater tax and emergency services tax in 2023. And that represented a $287 annual increase on average, the average household, or a 46% tax increase in that year. In addition, we did borrow $10 million for long-term projects, such as stormwater infrastructure, really bridges and pipes. The new fire substation, which is just on Valley Forge Road up here, as you guys know of, and the 23 Bridge Avenue firehouse, which is over 100 years old and needed to be replaced. So those are sort of generational type projects that we needed to do. And I'm happy we're doing them. Overall, I think you should be confident the current board is spending taxpayer money as if it's our own money, getting the best value for that money we spend, and we're committed to providing great value to our residents while keeping taxes low. And I'm going to give you one example of 2 recent projects that you guys heard about a lot in these meetings. That's the Pew Road Bridge repair, which was cost $1,034,104.79. And the Warner Spur Bridge repair, which is another $1 million bridge, it's $1,014,175.10. Both of those projects, thanks to Steve Berger, who's not here, but I'll give him a nod, were 100% funded by FEMA. Now, we, as a township, if you came to these meetings, there was a lot of angst up here about the amount of money we were spending for those projects. We paid for them out of reserves, and eventually we were able to get grant funding back to pay for those projects. But that's the kind of thing that the township is doing to make the use of your money effectively. And I just want to make sure you understand that is how we're operating. And it is a little nod to our township staff. There's only a few of them here, but it's a nod to the township staff and how well and how carefully they manage the resources. We're going to get a question about what's the plan for the site. And while we don't have we haven't been on the site really, we can just look at it through the fence. We're going to pay for it out of general fund reserves and then apply for grants. I mean, that is how we would pay for it. We have plenty of money to pay for it. Short term, we'll probably remove the pool, clean up the remains of the barn foundation, make the restroom functional, and clean up the site, and generally clean up the site and get the courts back in operation. We have some estimate. I mean, this is the one number I'm going to throw out there for you guys. We think that's like a $250,000 or $300,000 project to get that site back up in operation, if in fact that's what we decide to do, and we don't find any particularly big unexpected things, which we don't really think we will. After that, we're going to create a long-term plan with the Park and Rec Board and the residents in terms of what to do with the rest of the site. And we'll pay for that with that long-term plan by applying for grants and funding. And that's how we've done all of our parks, is we apply for grants, we use a matching grant, we use partially township money and partially grant money. So I'm in favor of this ordinance. I'm going to vote yes. Our residents need more outdoor recreation options, and this site offers those options. It's already set up for outdoor recreation, has been used for outdoor recreation for over 50 years, and the current owner hasn't presented a plan that complies with the zoning in Chesterbrook. I'm voting yes. So thank you. Other board comment? Anybody?
I know this has been going on for a long time because my first encounter with it was in 2019, before I was even on the Board of Supervisors, when there was a hearing at the property owner's request. It was over trying to change the zoning from rural conservation to being able to build these homes on it. And there was a huge crowd. It probably was bigger than this one, although this one at this point is standing room only. And I was with the Chesterbrook residents then in being opposed to a zoning change, because what the developer, what the owner wanted to put there seems so oversized for this location. It's like they wanted to build a few castles in the middle and have the peasants all, on the outsides of it. And it clearly did not fit. Plus, going back to when Chesterbrook was developed, this was supposed to be rural conservation space for the reason that it is a lot of density there. And so we need to break up that monotony there. And again, I know some people have said, well, we already have Wilson Farm Park. Why would we need another park so close? Well, Tredyffrin keeps growing, and people want additional use, and this is a property that has the exact uses that would be easy to convert it over. So I can't see, if rural conservation doesn't mean what it says it means, which is preserving it, even when everything else is building up around it, then when can anybody ever depend on that kind of zoning code, that zoning indication that a property designated for rural and conservation will actually remain that way? So I think this is also a very rare chance for the township to get a great deal more recreation park space when the township is already so built up. It's a very mature township, and we see homes going up in little places that we never would have imagined before because everybody wants to be here. So it's not like there's a lot of property elsewhere that the township might take and turn into a park. So for these various reasons, I remain committed to keeping this property as rural conservation, and I'm going to vote yes for this proposal.
Any other board comment at this time?
Yeah, I just want to second the comments of Chair Miller and Supervisor Humble. My thinking about this site, and it's really kind of basic. I mean, I think Mr. Nagel used the term sound planning principles. For me, sound planning principles here are to respect the RC zoning and use this property for something that it's been used for decades. And it's been zoned RC to maintain the foundation of Chesterbrook as a community based in open space and recreational space, set in places where residential living can go on, and where it's good for everybody, it's good for the community. So I have no problem. And I think if I step back, and if I think about RC zoning and the change and how that would start destroying what Chesterbrook is all about. And people say, oh, it's only 28 units, it's only 20 units, it's whatever units. It's additional density in an area where that was never the plan. People spent a lot of time designing that plan. People think, oh, but it was a long time ago. No, they thought it out and it's worked and it's still working, and here's an opportunity to keep it working, and I will be voting yes.
So could I comment now, Chair Miller?
Basco?
Yeah, so basically, I would like to first echo the comments that Supervisor Holt made at the last meeting. He was unfortunately not able to be here today, but he made his comments at the last meeting, and I'd like to echo those. And secondly, what I'm hearing, if I may, interpret between the lines of what the developer is saying, it's like this is a dense part of Chesterbrook, so let's make it even denser by putting more housing in there. Whereas the idea of keeping it a rural conservation district was so that it's a dense part of Chesterbrook, so there's open space to go with that density. So I would be voting for the motion.
So I feel my fellow supervisors have summed up the situation very eloquently, so I don't want to repeat and waste everyone's time, but I will say that I agree with the comments that have been made, and I will also be voting yes.
Okay, I'm the last of the Mohicans here. So I'm going to say a few things. One, I wasn't on the board when all of this started, okay? But I have a problem with not having open space. And Sarah, I understand you came into this, at the end. But I also think about the fact that if it gets changed in Chesterbrook, I live in the Panhandle, okay? I'm up in the Panhandle. And there are other places in this township where they want to put, I call them Lego blocks apartments, which to me takes away the character. And I'm not a Chesterbrook person, I'm a Panhandle person, okay? So I'm gonna put that out there. I'm in a totally different spot. But if you came up into the Panhandle and we had empty space, like right across the street from me in Fox Chapel, and that all got torn down, and you said you wanted to build 50 houses or 100 houses, 100 townhouses, I'd be like, no, because it's now going back to what it was, open space. I understand what the person who purchased the property, and I'm quite sure that he thought he could wait and maybe somebody would change their mind or Chesterbrook would say, okay, fine. But I just don't see, even though it's a over 55 community, and I'll put my hand up, I'm over 55, and that would be great. I just don't see that there. I'm not a pickleball person, okay? If you see me come in, I can't walk real good, so I'm not a pickleball person. I'm not a tennis person, basketball, none of that. It's not in my forte anymore. But I just can't see putting 28 houses where you already got this. I'd have to vote no to that. I really would. And this, it's nothing against you personally, but I just don't see that.
Thank you. I think that's all of our comments here. We want to start with public comment. I think people need to line up at the microphone. Please tell us your name and where you live, and then give us your comments. Thanks.
Hi, good evening. Thank you, Board of Supervisors. You spent so much time understanding the situation. Sorry, Joanne Fisher, 300 Chase Road, Chesterbrook. I'm the president of the Chesterbrook Civic Association. We'd like to thank you for all of the hard work and all the improvements with fiscal responsibilities that this board has provided to our township. This vote is not just a win for Chesterbrook residents, it's a win for all of the township. People have been asking for more racket sports centers in the township. The gym that I belong to, Lifetime, has converted their basketball courts to pickleball. I still can't get a court unless I book a month and a half in advance. Everybody wants to play pickleball and tennis, and we just don't have enough sites. In addition to that, this is an out-of-the-box park with 6 pickleball and 4 tennis courts, recently resurfaced and in great condition. We also will have extra acreage for family type or community types of items. You'll hear lots of ideas tonight from some of the residents. I just want to also say this room is packed tonight, and it's not just Chesterbrook residents. We have people from across the township. So we thank you again for your hard work and for understanding the problems in our community and fixing them. Thank you.
My name is Ken Taylor, 73 Shelbourne Court. That's Greystone, which is a community that's immediately adjacent to this proposed site. I come here tonight wearing 2 different hats. One of my hats is as an attorney for the sole nearby resident who remained active in the litigation that's ongoing in Chester County Court of Common Pleas regarding the developer's attempt to convert this zoning from rural conservation to R4 that would enable the developer to build the 40 units it contends it has a right to. And I want to assure the folks here that the reason this compromise has been made, it's similar to one that had been made in the past to the township and rejected, is that the developer knows that this is an uphill fight to attempt to change the zoning from rural conservation to what it seeks. They know that from a practical standpoint and a legal standpoint. The township, through its solicitor, made fabulous argument in the Common Pleas Court that establishes much of what Supervisor Miller indicated, and that was that the forefathers that planned Chesterbrook saw the complications of very tight living without providing some respite. And that respite was provided through its planning and eventual zoning for these rural conservation districts. There isn't one that is, in my mind, needed more than the one that is the subject of this hearing. It is among the most tightly congested area in Chesterbrook. It is an area that, while proximate to Wilson Farm Park, is still needed as a respite area and a recreation area, and it should be treated as such and preserved as such. Regarding the eminent domain, I want to assure all of you to do not pine for the owner of this property. This property's price was negotiated so many years ago that just the natural appreciation of property is going to result in the eminent domain procedure of providing this owner with quite a bit of a profit or an excess on the amount that is going to be ruled to be paid the owner of this property by the court in excess of what it spent on this property, and I would contend also that it's carrying charges to date. So don't feel bad about the developer. The developer would be more than made whole in the eminent domain process. My other hat is of a person who lives in the development immediately adjacent to this site. And that is that while there are individuals that have some trepidation about the township's ultimate plans to use it for racquetball courts, I'm going to be one of the people in the line of fire as far as all that, or in this case, in the line of what I hear. And I am saying that as a proximate resident, I am absolutely willing to put up with whatever minor implications that may occur having to do with the township's utilization of this park, as opposed to when this was run as a private facility, a nonprofit private facility. The township will be able to use its police force to enforce things like time of use and sound limitations on this property, something you could not easily do when it was private property. So I'm happy with the idea that this is going to be utilized as it was originally intended, as a recreational facility. I'm glad that Supervisor Miller indicated the financial wherewithal the township would have to affect the purchase price of this. And I encourage all of us to support the township in its efforts to, of course, minimize the amount of cost that this property is going to be. But ultimately, the eminent domain process is a court process where a fair price is ascertained by a non-party, and that is the court itself. So the township will be paying a fair price when the litigation ensues. The owner will be receiving a fair price when the litigation ensues. And I obviously support what seems to be the majority of the board in voting yes to proceed with the eminent domain.
Hello, everybody. I'm Michelle White. I live in Embassy Court. Embassy Court. And I want to be transparent. I'm the president of the Association of Embassy Court, and I'm also the president of Parcel 1. I am not speaking on the associations. I'm speaking for myself as a homeowner. Everybody here is talking about the RC and the zoning and then this and that, and I was of the impression that this was a discussion about having an eminent domain proceeding. With that being said, I have a couple questions about the eminent domain proceeding. The first one is, has any due diligence been done yet?
Yes.
Yes. Have we found out how much it would cost to fill in the swimming pool?
I didn't understand your question.
Like, if you're buying a property, you do your due diligence.
So we have an estimate of what it costs to fill in the swimming pool, yes.
Okay, and how about redoing the bathrooms? You have a cost for that yet?
We have an estimate. We haven't been in the bathroom, so we don't know exactly. But we have an
Okay,
estimate.
so I'll turn it around. I take it then you haven't done a noise study?
I'm sorry, what, I can't hear your question.
A noise study?
A noise study? No,
I take it there's been no noise study yet?
No.
Okay, so you know there's noise from it because you shut down a court right near Valley Forge Military Academy because of complaints from neighbors about noise. Have you talked to any of the other townships?
We didn't shut down the courts by Valley Forge Military Academy because of noise. We shut them down because they were for-profit.
Because of complaints from the neighbors.
They were because it was a for-profit business in an area that couldn't have a for-profit business.
And complaints from the neighbors. I'm not here to argue. I'm just here to throw out a couple things that I want everybody to be aware of. I'm a money person, so let's go with that for the time being. Have you talked to any of the other townships around about what they're doing with their pickleball courts or what they're allowing to be done? No? Did you know that Easttown Township is passing an ordinance, our township right over next to us, that if any pickleball courts are going to be built, that they have to have a noise study done prior to the approval?
Well, we're aware that noise is an issue with pickleball.
So
Can
what,
I
if
finish,
you're
please?
aware
Wait, I'm
of it,
letting you
why
talk.
do you
Let me-
want to give all of my neighbors an issue with noise?
Can I finish my sentence, please?
Sure.
So those 6 pickleball courts were there for years, actively used prior to this, and we had no complaints.
Which
Can I
I
finish? Wait, can I
understand.
finish? Wait, I let you talk. Let me finish. The speaker before you is a neighbor, and he said he didn't have an issue with noise. And we know that Pickleball USA is working very, very actively. There's a lot of money being invested or in coming up with quieter pickleballs and rackets. And I expect that is going to be a solution relatively soon. So I don't think the noise
I get it.
is a primary issue at this point.
I'm not saying noise is a primary issue. I'm just saying it's an issue. And that we all need to know about the issue. Do you have any idea of what the effects of a public park inside of a privately owned property will be? Do you know any of that yet? What our property values could be or not be?
We have a lot of public parks that are surrounded by privately owned homes, you know. They all are.
Not like it is in parcel 1. No. Okay, moving on.
All of our parks are in neighborhoods.
20%, you were quoted as saying 20% of the township lives within walking distance. What did you consider as walking distance?
Well, most of Chesterbrook. I mean, I consider it a fairly large walk, but yeah.
Really? Okay. Do you know how many of that 20% would be actually able to use the park? Are they elderly? Are they children? We're talking about potential taxes. I'm just saying potential, I'm not saying you're going to. On 80% of the people within the township, on 20% that could possibly benefit from this park. Just throwing it out there.
Can I ask you a question?
Grant money.
Excuse me, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
Okay, so let me get this, and if I'm understanding you right, you're looking at if this land, which this gentleman is representing somebody who wants to build houses, you're saying if the houses aren't built, but if the township, or I'm taking it in, if the township builds or the township takes over the land and the township decides to put up a pickleball court and basketball courts and all of that, you're looking at the cost of that also, of how it's going to affect everybody in Chesterbrook? Or if I'm understanding you saying that it seems like it's going to benefit a few versus the norm?
Many, correct.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
you're correct. I know you had mentioned something about grant money. Well, we all know with grants, you got to put the money out first and then they reimburse you, I believe. Is that how it works? Aren't you afraid, I'm not getting political here, don't think I'm getting political, but aren't you afraid with what's going on with the current administration that we could get this grant And I believe, Murph, you had mentioned it in the last meeting about watching the township's finances because of the uncertainty. And I know the governor had to sue the administration to get money that was already promised and written out. And as a matter of fact, they did it again today. So I'm a little nervous about this money. And I'm not saying I'm for or against this, just so you know, I'm just wrapping my head around money. And this is not making monetary sense to me. And I need it to before I can make any kind of a decision. I don't, go ahead.
When you're saying monetary sense in the township purchasing it versus it being built?
Oh, I'm not talking about that.
Okay, so.
Oh, no, I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about the township.
So you're talking about the eminent domain and what it's gonna
That's what
cost?
yes.
That's what it's gonna cost and all, that's what you're worrying about?
That's what I'm worried about.
Okay.
I do have another question about that. Part of my,
So, Michelle, we have a lot of other people who want to speak.
I got one more question, David.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm in the public too. So I pay a condo fee every month to my association. A part of my condo fee goes towards the private roads and infrastructure of Parcel 1. Has any consideration been given to what it would cost you to reimburse Parcel 1 for use of their infrastructure so my condo fee doesn't go up along with potentially my taxes going up?
We have a right of way to use the roads, right?
Yes, but I think the answer to the question is no.
Okay, all I want to know, like I said, I'm a money person, so I'm trying to follow the money here.
Thank you.
I don't think this is dollars and cents for the taxpayers, and it's certainly not dollars and cents for me, but we'll see where it goes. Everybody think about your money.
Hi there, my name's Henry Lewis. I'm a permanent resident at 17 Chateau Circle across from the portion of land. I just wanted to highlight like a legal concept that maybe I don't perfectly understand, but I think is relevant here, and it connects to my personal experience with the property, and that's the concept of implied dedication, which suggests that if a piece of private property is used by the public for an extended period of time without sufficient enforcement to notify the people that it is private property or they're not allowed to be using it in such a way, then that piece of property can lose its ability to restrict access to that portion of the property. It doesn't mean that, you necessarily have to forfeit the property itself, but you can lose the opportunity to restrict access to it. And my experience in growing up in Chesterbrook is that people openly and in no way covertly or in bad faith used the parking, the basketball courts, biking on it, walking their dogs, the green spaces, climbing the trees, doing all the things that people normally do with their immediate surroundings. And I went through the entire education system here, Valley Forge Elementary, middle school, Conestoga High School. No one came out to tell us that we couldn't be using the space. We used it almost every day, and again, very openly. And I also want to highlight, I know that the lawyer here isn't necessarily responsible for this type of rhetoric, but talking about an entitlement to build homes on a space that isn't zoned to do so feels inappropriate. And then referencing what I've just described, to leave the property in the state that it's currently in, and with a kind of half-effort fence around it, which kids are actively climbing over and probably getting hurt on, and continuing to use the space because it's the path of least resistance, and people will do what's easiest, and people will do what they were doing for decades. I think that all of that should be considered when you do litigate this concept of a fair market value. Please keep in mind that like a significant portion of the property, from my perspective, had long ago lost its opportunity to be sectioned off and sold in a very private and like speculative manner for someone's profit. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Justin Horst. This is my wife, Kristen Stickley. We live at 311, oh, I'm not quite close enough, 311 Head House Court. We're right across the street from this site, and first and foremost, along with everyone else with these yes signs, we just wanted to thank all of you for having the vision for this, to really give this back to the community, because we so appreciate having the opportunity to use this space again. We really see this as an opportunity to do so much for all different backgrounds, all different age demographics. We're talking a lot about sports here tonight, but we're avid community gardeners, going back the last 2-3 places we've lived. And we would love to see something like that on the rest of this space that isn't currently used for the courts. It's a really great opportunity, so people who are 55 and up, like we've heard about that population, children all the way down to 2 years old, you can bring your kid and you can really enjoy a park space, especially if there's something like a community garden that could really serve all members of the community. And in a time like this where you just have rampant inflation and rising food prices, it's just such a beautiful thing to be able to think about when there really isn't a space where that could be done. But this is a gift in that sense, and we would really love to see that happen.
Yeah, and I think we would just add, or I would just add, that we've been speaking with the Chesterbrook Civic Association, the park board of the township, and one of the problems we faced in trying to start this initiative is that many of our parks don't have water access, and this site does. And I think that that is kind of like a beautiful gift, because we, wouldn't have to necessarily like drill a whole new system. Also, I just wanted to add that it's right near Valley Forge Middle School, and as you all know, community gardens that we've been a part of have often involved educational programs, to come over and learn about where food comes from, what pollinators are, et cetera. So again, I think it's a really great location. And lastly, I was not aware of the background. We bought our house a year ago, but great to hear that there's the word conservation being used with this area. Part of our initiative we'd like to see through is to ensure that there would be native plantings and possibly a pollinator space in wherever our garden ends up. So I think that, again, would be a really wonderful opportunity. And thank you all.
Good evening, Mark Lewis from 17 Chateau Circle. I live directly opposite the development. Thank you to the board for the time and the effort that you put in over the years as we've made our way through this process. I also want to say thanks to staff who have been great support during all of our ups and downs. I actually bring a lot of messages of support from other residents at Picket Post. Some people traveling, some people not well enough to come to today. And that's when I look back here and see all these other faces that I recognized from walking dogs, from being out in the community, and from talking to people in the past couple of weeks, as people have really got behind the idea of what a creative way of making a difference in our community. I'm also here because a great friend of mine and partner who on a number of the committees, Ed Toney, who passed away in November, was very, very passionate about making this happen. And I do sometimes feel that he's a support for all of us from that perspective. Chase Road Pool was a popular swim and tennis club when I and my family moved here nearly 30 years ago. The location, the function, the aspect was a really big reason for moving to Chesterbrook. Over the years, the recreational function has really developed. In fact, before the land was finally sold, after lots of toing and froing, there was a fast-growing pickleball community of all ages and people arriving from all over the community, not just the Chesterbrook villagers. And they were playing every day. There were times when those courts were full in the evening. There was no doubt about how popular it was. And it was closed down a couple of years ago when the sale actually went through. So, you know, the residents got a lot of use of space after work. Maybe people planned staycations because of the space. People could walk, they could run through it. It was exactly what it was planned for. So today, well, over these past years, today it feels abandoned. It feels lost, despite its real purpose still being laid out clearly in the original Chesterbrook plans and in the dreams of many of our residents and my neighbours who bought because of what it was before. So now what? Well, you know, a few days ago, I witnessed more than 10 youngsters on the tennis courts. They had made their way through the many holes and dangerous gaps in fencing that's been there for 2 years since the developer finally closed the deal. You know, I have walked that dreadful that dreadful path between the tennis courts and down to the back path by Knoxbridge. There is a danger to people at the moment, and it's owned by this developer. He's had it for 2 years, never touched it. I think many people don't even know that it's part of that plot. There was a kid playing basketball on the old basketball court that I have changed the nets on a few occasions. Henry and I were talking about it just earlier, just how long people have been involved with playing on that space. You know, allowing those kids to grow up and play within sight of their parents, seeing their friends, and within easy distance of their townhomes and apartments, that was worth a lot. This is what needs your support tonight, supervisors. After many years of the struggle to hold on to what has been a lovely space in previous years, do the right thing for the next and new generation of children growing up in Chesterbrook, as well as the slightly older residents who are asking for tennis and pickleball and for their health and wellness. That is why you need to vote for action. Thank you.
Good evening. Arthur Zadrozny, spelled Z-A-D-R-O-Z-N-Y, at 16 Painters Lane. And I appreciate this opportunity to come before you in support of your effort to do what's right in taking back control of this property so that the residents of Chesterbrook can enjoy the quality of life that they have come accustomed to. And I'll speak to the taxpayer side of me as well. I don't want to see any more money being spent than necessary. But for those people who live in the area around Chase Road, I feel for you because I can't imagine what's happened to property values over the last several years, that this has been left to sit as an eyesore by what is a speculative developer who, if he really cared about the value of the community, would have done right a long time ago and never gone this far. As to the cost, the board is aware I was involved in a local project a couple of years ago to try and help fund a bike park for the young students, young kids in Chesterbrook who were building ramps in places where they shouldn't have been building them. And the township was generous enough to provide property at Mill Road Park, and as part of the grant that we applied, and we did successfully get a grant for about $125,000, and it comes from a source that's not subject to political whims, as most of these grants are. The value of that 3/4 acre parcel of land was assessed as part of the grant application at about $35,000, which puts the value of that land at about $50,000. Now that's township property, but that is similarly deed restricted like this RC value is. So at the 5 acres of this Chase Road property, that says maybe $250,000. And I realize the developer paid a lot more than that, but he's a speculator. And I would hope in the arguments the board makes to ensure that we don't pay more for this property than we have to, you make that point very clear to the judge. He is not insured a profit at all. He took a risk. And if the developer loses his shirt, that's just one of many different risks that the developer has taken. I'm also a pickleball player, and I enjoy playing pickleball. I also recognize the noise factor, and I think it would be very reasonable for the township to put some restrictions on time so that we're not out there at 6:30 in the morning in the summer. 8 o'clock start times and all that, and fencing, trees and the like. I happen to live next door to the Picket Post Paddle Club facility. And we know that if trees are properly installed, it can do a great job to muffle the noise. So I think we will find a way to compromise the concerns of the residents, but also, as you've heard, the residents are using this facility even if in its current chained off state. So I think they'll appreciate it even more. The other reason I want to say here, and I've stated this as part of the zoning board hearing when I came as a member of the Painters Lane Association. I'm a board member there. There are several of my neighbors here today. We do live adjacent to the other RC property within Chesterbrook. And my concern is that if this developer is allowed to succeed in his efforts to transfer this RC property to an R4, that'll set up a precedent that then says the other RC property is also subject to the next developer that wants to come along. We can't be selling the property that we have left that's used for open space. Please, don't let that happen. Keep it the way it is. And the last thing I'll say, in terms of the reasons to do this, is on the plus side. We in Chesterbrook enjoy the open space we have, but this 5 acres was not truly open space. It was a private club. I hope you would look at this as an opportunity to take what was a good community space that people were making use of, subject to the allowances of the private club, and now making it available to everybody's use as part of a public park. So I applaud you for your direction. I'm sure you will do the best to keep the costs in line, but we will all, as property owners, I think, benefit.
Thanks. Thanks. Yeah,
Doug Onestad, A-N-E-S-T-A-D, 221 Musket Lane. I've lived in Chesterbrook for over 24 years now, and I am as concerned as everyone else is about the use of RC and going back on that. And I would like to say, not just for Chesterbrook, but for all of Tredyffrin, we have a lot of nice spaces that are zoned certain ways. And let me go to that first, and I'll do some general comments. But I really hope that the board does look at tightening up some of the zoning and planning code to help steer the growth of this township in a direction we want it to go for the benefit of the community. Because I think that right now we have too many codes that are can be interpreted too loosey-goosey to do things. I'm not talking about this one, I'm talking about in general, so we don't have to come here as a community to advocate for something, for a development that's by right, and everyone's like, this doesn't fit my community. So it's a related topic. I want to go back to what the prior speaker just said about speculative. We don't need to feel bad about the developer because being made whole, because it was a gamble. They rolled the dice and it came up snake eyes. That's not on the community. And I would like to reiterate what the prior speaker said, which is we need to only pay what it's worth. The property is worth, nothing more. We don't owe anything. Matter of fact, you owe it to the taxpayers to make sure we do not overpay whenever we're in front of the judge. And I also look forward to working with the Park and Rec Board with the future plans for this space once we get to that stage. So I'm really looking forward to that. And thank you very much for supporting the community.
Thanks, Doug.
Hi, I'm Betsy Hargus, H-A-R-G-U-S. I live at 331 Head House Court. And several of the speakers ahead of me very articulately said some of the things that I wanted to say, but I was in line, and it would be not like me to say something in a township meeting, so, so I'm up here. I do want to really reiterate the importance of the park. Today, on my walk through the neighborhood, I saw a little boy in picket post just a couple of doors from the park playing basketball on his front steps and using his mother's clay pots as a hoop, which I'm sure she'll be thrilled about when they start breaking. And I just wanted to say, oh my God, there's a basketball hoop, you could walk over there and play with that. And I just felt so sad about that. And the other thing that I want to say, I did write down some notes when Mr. Luden's attorney was speaking. I'm sorry, I forgot your name. We spoke with Supervisor Holt after last week's meeting, and when he had said, or last month's meeting, when he had said, what we should say to the developer is shame on you. And this has been 7 years of this going on, and he has been the worst nightmare of a neighbor. He has shown nothing but disrespect for the community, and I don't trust a word he says. He was saying he was going to put up 48 buildings, but oh, oops, the barn fell down, so now I can put up 60. And so this 28 building thing, I don't buy it. And I just feel like, again, he speculated on the property. It was never zoned for what he wanted it to be zoned for, and I don't feel one bit sorry for him, and I cannot wait to see his back going down the road. Thank you.
Hello, Claire Lewis, 17 Chateau Circle. I just want to say, with respect to the gentleman here, that I'm sure the developer thinks 28 houses is a really great idea, but the majority of people here don't think it's a great idea. We live next to it. We don't want the hassle. We don't want the damage to our infrastructure. My son very eloquently explained the value to the community. I think you're going to hear a lot about the cost to the township of this, taking this by eminent domain, but please bear in mind that the value isn't just to the community today, it's for the generations to come. And I'd just like to say one more thing. The president of Parcel 1 is here as a private citizen today, but I do not understand why she does not support the majority of the citizens in Parcel 1 who are opposed to the development of this parcel.
Hello, everybody. My name is Mike Heberg, Heaberg, and I live in Berwyn. So I think I'm the first speaker who's come to the microphone that doesn't live in Chesterbrook. I think everyone else lives in Chesterbrook, I think. I guess I have a few observations and a couple questions. First of all, I've watched a lot of hearings, and I think it's pretty unusual that the board says, this is how I'm going to vote, and then they say, now we'll listen to the community. I think that, I guess I'm puzzled by it because I find it unusual. I understand that there are, you might have your own leanings, you may have certain things you've thought about, you may have a perspective or whatever, but to say how you're going to vote before you hear from the public, I just find that unusual. My next question is for Mr. McKenna, which is, once this ordinance passes, are we at the point of no return? In other words, at that point, there's no further discussion with the development of the developer of any alternative plans, anything like that. And once we approve this, then it's a go forward on the eminent domain process. That's my first
So the ordinance doesn't become effective for 31 days. This simply authorizes us to take action in accordance with the ordinance. If circumstances change, if the developer and the board decide to change direction, no, they can absolutely do that prior to the declaration of taking being filed.
Okay. Second question is, what effect, from a legal standpoint, does this have on the court case? So, in other words, if the township initiates the eminent domain process, does that end the court case that's in Chester County Court, or does that continue?
In all likelihood, it will at some point end that case. If the township becomes the legal owner of the property, the appellant, who is Finnery, the current landowner, would lack standing to then pursue their appeal. So at some point, yes, it will likely resolve, usually after the preliminary objection stage if there are preliminary objections that are lodged during the eminent domain proceeding.
Okay. My next question is for the board, and to some extent more directed to Supervisor Humble, is has the Parks and Recreation Board, taken a look at this option for recreation along with the other pickleball option that was offered within the Wilson Farm Park, and done a comparison or an analysis or had a conversation about those two alternatives and what are the pluses and minuses of those?
The Parks Board has not. This is something that started as a discussion amongst the Board of Supervisors because it is a real estate matter, and so it's only been discussed in executive session besides what we've put out to the public, so it has not yet been put to the Parks Board about how it should be developed. And I am kind of confused by you said, it seemed odd to you that we all spoke and said which way we wanted to vote first before getting the public. Was it not that way when you were on the board?
It was not. So we would, we'd listen, we'd have a hearing, we'd listen to what the public had to say, and we'd make a motion, we'd hear what the public had to say, and then we'd go down, various supervisors would say, well, I heard this, and this is what I think, and this is how I'm going to vote.
I guess now we've moved to, seems like a Steven Crowder format, doesn't it? I'm going to support this matter, change my mind. I don't know if you know that pundit, but that's what he's famous for.
I don't, I'm not
He
familiar
sets out something that he believes is correct and then says, change my mind. So we're waiting for people,
Okay.
if you oppose it and you have good reasons why, change my mind. That's what we're looking for.
Yeah, we don't vote until we vote.
No one's, yeah.
Okay, fair enough. I just find it unusual.
As you know, this is like the third hearing we've had on the topic, so it's not like we haven't had.
It's
a
the
lot of
first
discussion.
hearing you've
Well,
had.
but discussions about the topic.
And I understand the limitations around the idea of the process to some degree has limited the amount of disclosure and financial discussion and so forth. I understand that to some degree, and I do appreciate that there's been a little more nuggets of financial information offered tonight. One other thing generally that I would like to observe is that there is an acute housing shortage in this township, in this county, and in this region. There is no question. It is probably the number one issue among elected officials that serve this community, and in fact, it goes nationwide. There's not enough housing for people. So, I think it's a little bit unusual to look at the idea of acquiring a parcel that's in a developable area within an already dense.
Let's let him, guys, let's let him speak, please.
Can't have you yelling out again. We're on the record. I can only have one person speaking at a time, please.
So the truth is that there is a housing shortage. It's being faced all over the place, including in Chester County, including in eastern Chester County. I think all of us know of people, and it's not just broadly, but anecdotally, people who can't find houses that they want to live in. So, that is something that I think should be considered. A couple other things. Just looking at the alternatives. Eminent domain, we are basically giving a blank check to Finnery LLC. And as much as we would like to pay, and including me, would like to pay as little as possible, that is not in our hands at all, okay? Eminent domain is an expensive, lengthy, and unpredictable process. I would like to, I think, I certainly respect the comments of many of all the Chesterbrook residents who've spoken tonight. But at the same time, I would think it's appropriate to temper their expectations, because this could take literally years. It could take 3 years, it could take 5 years, it could take more. Talking to people who are involved in eminent domain proceedings all over the place. So this is not going to be usable pickleball courts in June. This is going to take a lot of time. Also, as Mr. Taylor commented earlier, who's an attorney and is close to this situation, in his view, and this confirms what I've heard from many other people, the minimum amount that we're going to have to pay the developer is a couple $1 million, minimum. So it's going to take the initial purchase price plus certain level of costs, but the minimum is going to be around $2 million, and we are at risk for sums significantly higher than that. You know, the developer could make the case that this is in an area where there's a lot of dense development and that he should be entitled to dense development, to, 30, 40, 50 units, and the court may side with him, and all of a sudden we're writing a check for $6 million or more. So this is unpredictable, and unfortunately, that is something that we have no control over. In addition, obviously, you've given us some more clarity around the expenses, but this is going to be a, $2.5, $3 million project, probably at a minimum. And if the court didn't go in our favor, I think it could be worse than that. So, this is money that's going to come out of the taxpayers' pockets. We have a savings account, as you pointed out, but it's going to come out of that savings account. And that's money that everyone here put into and is targeted to be used for various things. We also want a cushion, so, this is not something that's to be taken lightly. In addition, by adding a 14th park, it adds annual operating costs that exceed the alternative, which is putting the pickleball courts in Wilson Farm Park. So, that is an additional cost that we would have to bear because you're going to have to maintain it and have people go there and clean the restrooms and so forth. So those are additional costs. And furthermore, if you take $2 or $3 million out of the bank or $5 million out of the bank, that's money that's currently earning interest for the township. That interest goes away. So, the alternative, and by the way, I have to say that I thought that the alternative that was offered was pretty interesting. We've been told through this process that the developer says, 40 units or bust. What we were told tonight was a plan for 28 units and included a pocket park in that location. So it, to some degree, offers public amenities in addition to the development, which seems to me to be an option worth considering. Let's put it that way. The other thing to remember for the neighbors that live close by, it's in a quiet neighborhood, right? Some of these fences are within 20 feet of the back patios of some of the residents. I mean, the noise thing is a national thing. As someone pointed out earlier, there are, at the YMCA in Berwyn, at every East Town meeting, there's people that show up who are upset about the noise from pickleball. It's everywhere, nationally, where these are issues. And if you read the studies, they say, look, you're okay if you're more than 500 feet away. But within 500 feet, you're going to have people who are going to be unhappy with the noise. And the other thing that I found interesting from one of the earlier speakers was that, we have pickleball courts in 4 other locations in the township. But one of the other speakers said, well, I think we should think about restricting the use of these courts. These courts are going to be paid for if they're purchased and developed by everyone who lives in this township, all 31,000 residents. And the current usage in township parks on pickleball courts, I think, is dawn to dusk. So, folks in the Chesterbrook community, unfortunately, and the close neighbors, I'd say, kind of be careful what you wish for. You might love this idea right now, and you might not like it when people are playing pickleball at 7:30 in the morning outside your patio and playing until 7:30 at night. The alternative that's been offered is...
Excuse me. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I got to interrupt you.
I was kind of on a roll.
I know you were, but I'm getting ready to get on one too. We're going to go. So let me just ask you a question here. One, I know I didn't say yes. I said to this gentleman here, I don't particularly think that's the right thing to do. I didn't give him a yes, and I didn't give him a no. So I'm going to say I kind of abstained in the middle. I said, I'm not happy with that. But I'm gonna flip this around.
Mhm.
Let's just say, and please excuse my language, for shits and giggles, they wanted to build the same thing. You're in Berwyn, and they have this huge space in Berwyn. And they wanted to build that. And I understand what you're saying about taxes. Believe me, I get that to the heart, because I don't want to pay any extra taxes either. But if this land has been developed for open space, so that you got a little bit of oxygen coming in with all this carbon monoxide, and if I'm understanding you right, you're saying he went from 60 to 40, now he's down to 28. That is still going to be congestion. That is still going to be carbon monoxide. That is still going to be people hearing noise, because even though they're 55 and over, he wants to build, I'm quite sure that a lot of these people have grandchildren, and they're going to come visit on the weekend. And so I'm trying to figure out where would you want this? And housing is a problem. That's a nationwide problem. There's not enough houses built, there's not enough housing for rent, but the other piece of the pie to that housing is that the interest rates are high. We're probably going to go into a recession. The feds aren't dropping the interest rates no time soon. Unless you are way up here and you're making a heck of a lot of money, you're not going to be able to buy some of these houses. And I get housing is a problem, don't get me wrong. But, yeah, we're going to be in court. That's a given. We're going to be in court with this man, and he's probably going to want $50 million, and we're going to tell him he gets 20. You know, and I'm just using that just as a joke. We know we're going to be in court. But how is it that you think it's okay, and I'm presuming, and I may be wrong, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, to take this land that was already set up to be space, open space, trees, grass, park, whatever you want to do, and let this man do it because he presumed, and he's hedging his bets, okay? He hedged his bets that this board's going to change or somebody else is going to drop dead or whatever, and I'm going to be able to build these originally 40 houses. Now I'm going to give you 28. How does that benefit the people who live around? Because there's still, if 28 families move in, 55 and over, you're still going to have noise. That noise is not going to go anywhere. The noise actually might be 24/7 because there's not going to be anything saying I can't have a party or I can't have a graduation, or you understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And how does that benefit? How does that benefit the residents of Chesterbrook? Again, I'm not a Chesterbrook resident. I'm in the Panhandle. But I wouldn't want this in the Panhandle either if there's open space. We do not have enough open space.
Well, I mean, this township has 13 parks, and well,
Take
hold on.
away the parks. I'm not talking
Hold on.
about parks. I'm
Hold on.
talking about open
I understand.
space.
We have, I mean, Mr. Clark's here. I'll give a commercial for them. Open Land Conservancy is one of the largest conservancies in Chester County. So we have open space all over the township, either owned by conservancies, owned by private landowners, and within our parks, we have a lot of, space. And remember, this is not, my perspective is always, this is about 31,000 people that live all over the place, including the ones that live in the Panhandle. And there's pickleball in 4 other facilities within the township that is available, right? So we have a lot of pickleball options. We don't happen to have anything in the Chesterbrook community right now, but there's also been a very viable, much less expensive, very appealing in a benign location option offered, and that's been taken off the table because of this particular option.
But
And
we had that young couple right there, or they were in here, that, I believe it's them, that said, along with the pickleball, the basketball, and the tennis, we'd like to put a community garden. That right there is a plus, because you could, if this parcel is 5 acres, I believe it's 5 acres or 4, something in there. And let's just say you took an acre of that and made a community garden. That right there is a plus for the whole township, not just the people in Chesterbrook, but you would have people coming from other areas in the township because it becomes a community garden. See, I'm looking at it like that. Maybe I'm looking at it wrong, but I'm seeing the whole township become involved.
Yeah, I think we got to go to another speaker. Yeah, it's for the whole community. I think we got to get to another speaker.
No,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you like
those
that.
are those the ground rules? Is that I'm gonna, I have a couple other things I want to say. I thought you said you want to move on to the next speaker. Okay. So by the way, to that last point, and I think that's a great idea, but there's nothing that says that we can't take an acre in Wilson Farm Park and have a community garden either. I mean, maybe that hasn't happened, but we have 13 other parks, and it's a good idea, and that maybe should be looked at by the Parks and Rec Board and say, where would be the best place or places in the township to have community gardens on township land? So, that can be done. I mean, what we're looking at is really there are two alternatives for pickleball. You can put the pickleball where it's being proposed under this eminent domain plan, which is it's a tough location for pickleball too, right? If you put it in Wilson Farm Park, okay, it's over 1,000 feet from a single resident. There's not a resident that's going to hear the pickleball at all, okay?
Tennis courts there for 30 years.
Please, ma'am, I can't have you yelling out. I have to let the speaker finish.
Okay, so
Please.
there's ample parking. There are existing functional bathrooms there. Everything you need is right there to build 4 or 6 pickleball courts, and you can play from 6 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock at night. If people want lights, you could have lights there, and it would not have any impact on any residents. And it would cost $300,000 or $400,000 of township money, as compared to $2 million, $3 million, $4 million, whatever is on that blank check that the court's going to fill in the numbers on. And so, I think that should have been evaluated, and I think that still should be evaluated. That is an option, because if what we're trying to provide is a place for people to play pickleball and tennis, there are options, and there's a great option in Wilson Farm Park, which is not only, it's better for all the township. There's going to be cars that are going in and out of here, which in Wilson Farm Park is not an issue. If you live on the other side of Chesterbrook Boulevard, it's easier for you to get to Wilson Farm. This isn't Wilson Farm Park than to get to Chase Road. It's more accessible for all Wilson Farm Park is more accessible for all the residents of the township than this location, and it would be at a fraction of the cost. So I think that the alternative that has been offered should be further investigated. I don't think that you should make a decision at this point to initiate the expensive, unpredictable, eminent domain process, but rather should take what this gentleman has offered and have further discussions around that before you make a decision.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Judy DiClementi. I live at 22 Sterling Court, and I'm just a mom up here. This is going to be real simple. Sterling Court is directly in front of where the paddles get hit, and I have not heard in 25 years one complaint. In fact, they love the ambiance. I have a neighbor that did a beautiful little garden. They sat out, they had their lemonade and listened to the rackets. Nobody complained. Sometimes there were complaints about members of the club because they drove too fast. But it sounds like if this is something that our police department is going to be actively able to address, if we had issues with people maybe that drove too fast, because it's homes, that would be taken care of. But I'm just going to talk about the people part here. And us as a village working together. It is by the grace of God, a child has not drowned in that pool. And so this cannot be 3 years. This has to be 3 months. That pool needs to be filled in. I am the mother of a young man with autism. I spend a lot of time walking in my community. Most of my neighbors here know my son. They probably know their dogs' names. He knows more people than I do. But we spend a lot of time, I'm very observant for his safety. We have how many different HOAs, landscapers in and out. We cannot have even 25 more homes in there with that much traffic on a consistent morning till midnight basis of more residents, more maintenance, more heat pumps being, we cannot have that and be safe. There's not the room right in there. I have seen older people walk and not have enough room now because of that fence. We have to do something now. We do not need another tragedy, another drowning in this township. So I know it's about money. I don't know enough about that. But we have to keep the kids in our community safe. Kids are kids. It's not safe right now. So we need to do something now. The pool's got to get filled in. That's got to be a must. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
I think you have listened. I think you've listened to emails that have been sent to you. So I think you have heard people speak about what they'd like to have done or see done and not happen there. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Pam Smith. I live at 73 Shelbourne Court. I am in the one party, along with the township, fighting the zoning. This has nothing to do with pickleball courts. This has to do with maintaining our zoning. We want to keep it recreational. We want to maintain it recreational. It happens to have pickleball courts on it. It happens to have tennis courts on it, so that's why that is mentioned. I've been living there for 13 years. I too have listened, and I'm right there. The tennis courts don't bother you. The pickleball courts don't bother you. Would it be nice having it right there and being able to use them once again? Absolutely. But is that the only thing that park could be used for, that area of open space? I don't care if it's just open space with a nice garden in it. We need the space. We need the openness. We need to let the density be alleviated. In this time of stress and everybody's here, we need a spot that we can walk to. I see children playing ball on the roads now instead of being able to toss a ball in an area that they can safely toss a ball or bounce a basketball. So this is beyond, oh gosh, I can go play pickleball up at Wilson Park or down at Tredyffrin Library. It's about having open space in our backyard so people can enjoy it within a few blocks of their home. They can enjoy it and allow their children that can't go out walking or get in a car to take them to a park can go play. That's what that's about. So the whole pickleball thing gets blown out of proportion. The people around it, we've all lived with it as a tennis court and have had no problems. If that should be the case, that we use it for that, I don't think I have a problem with that. I know my neighbors don't have a problem with that. I do have a problem, and we have considered many different options. Not all have been presented to me as a party, as they should have been, but again, we've made looks at those types of things, adding housing. We don't want to look at that. We want to maintain the zoning as we've all requested it, as it got through the first session, and hopefully would get through the next appeal. I would be happy if we just bought it and got it done with. It needs to stay as is. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Am I allowed to talk again? Okay. Betsy Hargis. And I'm just going to make a few brief comments. The first comment is I was going to just reiterate what several other people have said. I live in Head House Court, directly across the street from the tennis courts and the pickleball courts. I have never been bothered by the noise, and I've lived there for 13 years. Also, the idea that there's a housing shortage, yes, that's true, but putting up $1 million plus condos is not the solution to the housing problem. There are not going to be that many people who can afford those. And thirdly, you know, again, I thought the question that you asked, Supervisor Johnson-Pugh, about would you want this built in your backyard? No. So that's all I'm going to say.
I just want to remark, Ms. Hargis, I agree with you. You know, Tredyffrin's full, you know, of houses. We're full. If people need housing, they're going to have to go somewhere else, and that's fine. And I don't think that this township owes it to some speculative person who we don't know who they are, they don't live here now, to provide a place for them to build a home, to live here. So I agree with you. Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Rob Sermarini. I'm it's Sermarini. I'm a 48-year resident of Tredyffrin Township, including Berwyn as well, and all the way back to when before Chesterbrook was built, right? Or when there was a lot of controversy around Chesterbrook as well. So there's a reason. I've been all over the world and all over this country, and there's a reason why this is one of the best places to live. And it's because of the decisions that you guys have made, these boards have made over the years. If you look back at Chesterbrook as a planned community, the only reason that the density in that area is as it is because of that RC area. Chase Road can't handle the traffic back to more density. Anybody who's walked along Chase Road knows that. And I'd like to say, growing up in Berwyn, we thought at one point in time when Chesterbrook was being developed, there were a lot of people who were against the idea of Chesterbrook, in fact, completely. And the reasons were for there, not for here. The township has made the right decision over all these years, and this has turned out to be one of the best communities in the country. And it's because of the decisions that were made, not for $1 million here or $1 million there. It was made for the long-term health of our community. So I appreciate the decisions that the board is making, and I think there's no way that we can have increased density in that area, and it would just be wonderful for the township to take back that area and give it back to the community. Thank you.
Can I stop for a second? So we're having repeats now. If people have something new to talk about, that's great, but we want to keep this. I'm sorry? Yeah, that's fine if there's somebody new. But if somebody has, as long as you're not repeating yourself, and try to keep it quick since you're coming up again. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, sure. Joanne Fisher, 300 Chase Road. Just like to refute a few items for Mrs. White and Mr. Heberg. This is a mature site. They have mature trees, they have a high berm, noise is not an issue. I'd also like to say that I've been at meetings, Mr. Heberg has come up and told us that he turned down the property when it was available for under 6 figures. So I just want to remind everyone that this is an action board who takes care of problems today, and leaving it sit as it did in prior boards has gotten us nowhere and has gotten us into deeper problems. So we appreciate your fast action on things, and just want to say this could have been handled years ago, maybe 7 years ago, and at a very small amount of money. So just reminding everybody about that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Am I on? Yes. Ray Clark, 1564 Overlook Place, Malvern. I'm inspired by Senator Cory Booker from New Jersey today. And even though the outcome is clearly preordained, no one said that their vote is going to be changed by anything anybody said. They said, I am going to vote for this. Unbelievable. Our representatives ignoring the voice of the people. Unbelievable. Anyway, I'm still going to speak in some way, as truth to power, to speak for the majority of the township that does not live in Chesterbrook, that is concerned about a completely open-ended financial obligation that increases the township's deficit. Is there any resonance with what's going on in our country? And that believes that, speaking for people that believe that transparency in government is really important. Now, I don't have a ring binder, but I got a big pad of paper, but I don't suppose you're going to let me go through it all. But there's one other international kind of parallel here. We've got a developer who has marched in. He's committed an immense amount of treasure to this project. And do we think he's just going to go away without an immense fight? No, he is not. Fox Rothschild is going to be up into Mr. McKenna before we know where we are. So, if you approve this, we had the lawyer who said, he seemed to know an awful lot about it, I don't know quite who he was, that the developer will get twice what he paid. He paid $1.3 million. 1.3, look at the Chesco deeds. All right, that's a public fact. Real information, $1.3 million he paid. And then he demolished the barn, so all sorts of treasure has been committed. And he's not going to walk away from that. We heard that. So this thing is going to be appealed ad infinitum. Mr. Hebo talks about that. So we've got an open-ended capital commitment. We have what's estimated to be a $300,000 fix-it-up obligation. But if we look at the RC zoning that everyone is so concerned to keep, each permitted use and activity shall be screened and separated from an adjoining property by a landscape planting strip not less than 100 feet in depth. Those pickleball courts are 50 feet from the nearest housing. So you would have to take half of the pickleball courts out if you're going to comply with your own zoning. Not only that, there should be no overhead lighting. Rural conservation, your ordinance. Not more than 40% of the land should be utilized for impervious services. Take a look at the overhead in Chesco Views right now. And so we're going to apply for grants. We're going to apply for grants. If you listen to the open space professionals who are talking every day to the county about funding, federal money, county money, it's drying up for open space. That will not happen. You think, oh, well, we'll send Steve Burgo, he'll talk to the county. No problem. There'll be a problem. So, if you don't do this, what happens? Well, we have our friend here who offered a compromise. Well, that's one solution. The other solution is we continue through the process. It's in the courts. The court decides, okay, RC is the right zoning. So he's got a property zoned RC. He could appeal that, I guess. But it's still open space, it's still RC, and you have an ordinance, you have ordinances that you can enforce to keep that property safe. So 28 houses is not the alternative. It seems to me that rushing to this decision is irresponsible. The reason that we have a solid fund balance is prudent financial management, and this seems to be going out of the window. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Jerry Berger, 6 Victorian Court over in Main Street Village. I just have a couple quick questions. When this property, obviously Pick a Post, that's on Bradford, owned this property, right? So it owned the property and then obviously went into, where it's at now. The property was available, correct? Why didn't the township buy it at that point?
I wasn't on the board at that time.
It hasn't been available for,
Yeah.
for quite some time, so understand that
What do
the
you-
current property owner had it under contract for years.
Yeah.
So it's been off the market.
How long?
Well,
7
we've been
years,
doing
6
this
years?
for, yeah, it's probably been 5 to 7 years.
So the developer that he's represented has owned the property for 7 years?
No, he had it under contract. Hang on, David. He had it under contract to buy it. He closed on it in January of 2024.
Okay, so let me just go back here. Why didn't the township ever put a bid in for the property?
Because it wasn't open for bid. There was a private contract already. We're not going to interfere with somebody's contract to buy the property. That'll buy us a different lawsuit.
Okay, so now you're going to use eminent domain, which I'll be honest with you, scares me. When the government can come in and say, when you have a transaction, with a fair transaction between two private individuals or companies or whatever you want to call it, and then come in and say, nah, we don't like it now, we're going to go and take it, when it's been sitting there for years and years and years, okay? That's number one. Number two, what really troubles me, and I'll be honest with you, I live in Main Street Village, and I don't live next to it, so I understand, some of the plight, but as a taxpayer, what I'm disappointed at is there's no numbers, no presentation that you have shown at all. Nothing. Nothing about the estimate on how much it might cost, the estimate as far as what the 10-year plan would be, the estimate on how much it might cost to build pickleball courts over in Wilson Park so people can at least do a comparison. You have provided nothing tonight on your end. Nothing. As a taxpayer, that's very, very disappointing. And I think what you have done is relied on these people, on the emotion, because it's obviously an emotional topic, to basically say, we got this in the bag, we'll just go forward. All right? And this really, really troubles me that I have not seen no numbers, nothing presented up there on that screen. And all I've heard is this poor man and his hey, at least they put 1.2 million on the floor to buy it, to do something with it. All the other boards that have been here, and I've been here 28 years, you've done nothing. Nothing. And you sit up there and to pretend now, and this poor guy is getting his brains beat in. I don't think that's fair. Okay? And all I can say is, I feel that you should have another meeting, come back with the numbers, so everyone knows exactly what's on the table. Because I don't know, is this 2 million, 3 million? Whenever the government says, oh, it's going to be 2, you could go in and double that price. Because we've seen it so many times. And that really, really makes me upset, that there's no numbers here and no one's making fair apples to apples decisions on this. Because then you might just say, well, we don't care. Can it cost 5 million, 6 million, okay? And not only that, you haven't even presented any other options, okay? For example, could you get someone to come in and maybe buy this from him, all right? And maybe make it as a swim park like Pick a Post is on Bradford? There's no options here. It's particularly, we'll pay for it no matter what it costs. And I think that's very, very poor management on your end.
Thank you.
Arthur Zidrosny, again, 16 Painters Lane. Let me try and refocus the real question here. Yeah, we'd like to have pickleball courts. Yeah, we don't want to spend more money than we have to. The reality is, we have sitting idle on the Chase Road property what's becoming an eyesore that is impacting the property values and the quality of life of the people that are there. We also have an ongoing township litigation issue that could be tied up in courts for years. So the alternative is the status quo, a blighted area, ongoing litigation, or this board taking action, which despite all the mistakes that might have been made in the past, despite the questions that might be out there about what the ultimate cost is, if you don't take the action now, we're going to be in the same situation years from now, because the RC zoning needs to stand, and whatever cost is going to take, someone's going to take a bath, we're going to be paying legal expenses to fight them in court. I'd rather fight them in court to regain the property for public use rather than fight in court to just maintain the status quo and tell someone speculative risk, you bet wrong on this township. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comment? Do any board comment?
I do. I can't remember, I don't remember your name. Yes, you. Jerry. Hi, I'm Carlotta. So, if I'm understanding you right, you want us to have another meeting, and you want us to give you numbers. Not, or speculative numbers. I'm going to say speculative numbers, because the land could be worth $500 an acre, $500 a spot now. Next week could be $20, who knows. But you want to see numbers. If I'm understanding, your concept is that, even though I don't think any of us was on the board at that time, well, I'm going to say I wasn't, because I'm the new kid on the block, but you want to see our numbers against the owner's numbers, so that you feel everyone, and I get, it's not just about this area, it's about the whole township, so that everybody has an idea. Is that what I'm understanding? I understand that. I understand we didn't show any numbers. I do believe in my head that Chairman Miller said numbers, but you want to see something in black and white. Is that what I'm, in black and white? You want to be able to see it in black and white?
Folks, hold on. Ms. Johnson-Pugh, I apologize, but the court reporter can't hear the member of the audience for this conversation because they're not at a microphone. So if there's going to be back and forth, otherwise, make sure the microphone is on, please.
The answer is yes. I mean, I just think you should have numbers. You're giving people to make decisions, and I'm not saying really one way or the other, because I could kind of go back and forth, but as a taxpayer, you have no idea what this is going to cost. And so then when you say, well, we're going to put, I don't know, 4 pickleball courts, it's going to come, it's like when they were going to say $9 billion and they built 9 chargers. That's what the type of cost creep that could go into this. And I think that for everyone here, they might still say, hey, that's fine, spend $2 million, $4 million, $6 million, whatever that may be. But I think it's unfair as a taxpayer. I've been here 28 years. I paid a lot of taxes. All right. I would like to know what the cost of this. I know what his cost is. All right. I'd like to know what the cost is, so that people like myself can say, okay, it's $3 million. We're willing to do for $3 million. But you presented nothing. If you were in private enterprise, you'd be laughed out of the boardroom.
So, sir, can
I hate to say
respond?
it.
Yeah, I've heard you now. Let me speak, all right? We are not going to give you numbers. I said this in the beginning. Can I finish?
I didn't say anything.
We said this in the beginning of the conversation, that we are not going to give you numbers because we are going to be in litigation with this gentleman. There's no reason for us to share our litigation position with him ahead of time. I can tell you that in executive session, we have talked about numbers. We have some pretty good views of what it's going to cost, and we're going to vote accordingly. But I'm not going to give you our litigation position in public until we have to in front of a judge. That's just smart business.
I don't know. So in other words,
so I did spend.
You can't even provide what the estimated cost is going to be on a maintenance, on a 10-year maintenance, or how much would it cost for to build one in Wilson Park?
So we have talked about what we were going to spend in Wilson Park for 4 courts. That number is public, is $300,000. I gave you an estimate as to what we were going to spend, or what we think we're going to spend to clean up the site and get it functional again. Those are the only.
Did you have a bid on that?
We just gave you, I just told you, we gave you estimates, that's all.
So there's no bids?
We haven't even been on the site yet.
I mean,
We can't bid it until it's too early to bid it. We gave you estimates. That's what you're asking for. That's what we have provided. But those are the only numbers we're going to share. So thank you.
all right.
So just could I?
Chairman, did you ask for additional supervisor comments? So basically, as I've been listening to the comments. Sorry, can you hear me now? I've been listening to the comments, and I hear the comments in support of keeping it as the currently zoned open space. And if I could sort of read between the lines of some of the other comments, they're basically saying, well, this is not necessarily something that I would, of my own volition, be choosing to do right now. But what I hear the others saying is there's a speculative developer who's come in, he's bought a lottery ticket, and he's basically kind of twisting our arms to change this thing so that he can make money. We're not in business to help the developer make money. We're here for the residents. And for the residents, keeping this as an open space is the best choice for Tredyffrin. And therefore, that's the reason I'm going to support it. And I came in with a bias in favor of taking the property. And now hearing the residents' comments have actually strengthened my opinion. So I will be voting yes.
Thanks. I think you said it well. The only thing I would add is, for me, a lot of this is around maintaining the RC zoning in the township. And it's addressing an important need for recreation that this site can fulfill for the residents. So there's a need and there's a zoning reason that this makes sense for me. Any other board comments or ready for a vote? I think we're ready for a vote. This is a roll call vote. I'm going to start with Supervisor Humble.
Aye.
Supervisor Gussie.
Aye.
Supervisor Wysocki. Aye. Supervisor Johnston Pugh.
Yes.
And Supervisor Bhaskar?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Do I hear a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I make a motion.
I'm going to second that motion. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Thanks, everybody. I do want to, just one more thing I want to say is I thank everyone who showed up today. I mean, I know there's a few people who come to meetings all the time, but there's a lot of people who made a point of coming tonight to express their view, and I really, this is not on the record. This is just me saying thank you. No, this is not on the record. Just to say thank you for coming, and on both sides. I just appreciate the time, so thank you.